The impact of religion and Sufism on arts in Sudan. Archeology. The audience will come to a new episode in our documentary series where we explore the impact of religion and Sufism on the arts in Sudan. An influence shaped over centuries of rich spiritual and cultural interaction. In this episode, we shed light on the manifestations of this influence in architecture and heritage, taking the domes scattered across the country as a window for reflection and interpretation. These domes are not merely architectural structures. They are living testimonies that pulse with the history of Sufi figures and reflect their role in shaping the religious and social consciousness. These domes, with their symbolic and aesthetic significance, tell the stories of men who devoted their lives to the service of religion, spreading its values with wisdom and gentle exaltation. Through their efforts, they helped establish the foundations of tolerance, compassion, and social harmony, leaving an enduring imprint on the collective memory of the nation. In this episode, we seek to explore their meanings, uncover their spiritual and cultural dimensions, and connect past and present within a deeper understanding of this heritage. So, dear audience, it is my greatest pleasure to welcome you to this new episode as a continuation for the series of documentaries that have been devoted to trace the impact of religion and Sufism on arts in Sudan. And in this episode, as you listen, our focus turns to archaeology. So I invite you to join us on this intellectual and spiritual journey. Stay with us. So as you listen, the audience, this episode is a unique one since we try together to journey across time, across history, to introduce the world of archaeology as part of the Sudanese arts series documentaries that have been devoted, as I told, to trace the influence, the impact of religion and Sufism in arts in general and in archaeology in particular. So I would like to share these lines which have been taken from Tayyib Saleh, The Wedding of Zain, in which he celebrated the ancient history of the Sudanese Sufis, more specifically their domes. So I would like to share these points and these lines from Taib Saleh within Gobzen. The place was a wasteland except for Salam acacia, and sayal trees scattered among the graves. The gaps between their branches will fill with darkness so that they look like squatting phantoms. The domes erected above the graves of the holy men were like ships on ocean waves. The large tomb in the middle looked mysterious and forbidding. So in these lines I share to indicate that domes and tombs is part of the Sudanese culture, and they have been connected with Sufis. And Taib Saleh, in these lines that I have shared, is celebrated the existence of this ancient art in the country. Books of history, it has been written that architecture is an artistic tradition that can help people consider how the sacred principles of Sufism took material form and in structure, with the shrines of synods and Sufi lodges, as well as mosques. These architectural wonders would define the great Islamic cities while also leaving imprints on the surrounding expansive countryside. Domed shrines gracefully ascend the skyline along the banks of the Nile and on the vast Neolithic plains in the Republic of Sudan. These are the resting places of Sufi synods or holy men of the past 5 centuries or more, objects of visitation and places of personal supplication and collective remembrance, centers of religious life in its spiritual and social aspects. Following this short introduction here, the audience, I would like to share the history of domes in Sudan. And before going further here, I would like to share the differences and the distinctive features between the two concepts, that is, the concept of dome and the concept of tomb. So it has been written and stated in the books of history, more specifically the side which is concerned with archaeology, that tombs and their superstructures called gubba, dome, or sometimes baniya, that's Arabic word, literally small building, are symbols of a veneration and difference for Sufi masters that has been fundamental to the expression of Islam in Sudanese society. The most manifestation of the influence and impact of Sufism in the archaeology is the scattering of dome tombs, gubbas, across the country. Most Sudanese are Sunni Muslims. Historically, Sufism has hardly influenced much of the country experience of Islam. Sufism is a dimension of Islam that emphasizes personal connection to God and learning through devotion to one's teachers. The impact of this philosophy on Sudan can be seen in the domes that dot the country, Senate tombs that often draw visitors and supplicants. The Arabic name for the tomb of a holy man, which serves as a repository for his barakah or blessing and a place of ziyarah, visitation for his followers and their descendants. A gubba is usually erected over the grave of a holy man identified as wali, saint, or faqih or sheikh, since according to folk Islam, this wire his barakah is believed to be strongest. Otherwise, a gubba can be simply a memorial shrine, distinguished by their tall, egg-shaped domes rising above a square building. Gubbas are found throughout Kordofan and other regions of Sudan, scattered across the country. The audience in the speech on archaeology, I would like here to comment on the two concepts of a tomb and dome. So a tomb is a burial place, while a dome is an architectural element. In other words, tomb serve as a function, while a dome stand as a form. So the history of tomb and dome in Sudan seem to have been present in the Nile Valley of the Bilad al-Sudan at least since the emergence of the first Islamic dynasties, the Abdullah and the Funj, between the 14th and 16th centuries. Oral traditions, notably those collected by Muhammad Nur ibn Difallah 1728-1809, are recorded in his collection of sacred biographies كتاب الطبقات في خصوص الأولياء, associate the arrival of early Muslim teachers and holy men and the travels abroad of Sudanese scholars and mystics with Arabia, Egypt and the Maghreb, and with the Shazali and Qadri brotherhoods. As this is evidently the context for the spread and implementation of the ritual and devotional practices, centering on the enshrined holy men. It was the rise of Sufi brotherhoods from the 12th century that promoted on a systematic basis the spread and multiplication of shrine centers combating mosques, lodge, school, retreat, and tomb. This was largely a grassroots development, although state patronage played a role. Significantly for the Neolithic Sudan, Sufi orders established themselves very early in the Hijaz with its pilgrimage centers, Yemen, Hadramaut, and Egypt, areas that were central to an expanding network of lodges stretching between the Maghreb and Southeast Asia. The Neolithic Sudan had a different historical legacy from the heartlands of Islam and was never incorporated into the medieval caliphates. Consequently, it should not be surprised as Intisar then Sayrun points out that the cultural manifestations of Sudanese Islamic practice, including the architecture of Islamic buildings, are distinct. Intisar argues that the Gubba of Sudan inherited features of graves and residential structures from millennia of pre-Islamic history. Tumuli, pyramids, valley-weighted chambers, dwellings with thatched roofs and low doorways, while incorporating elements of especially Islamic provenance, such as the mihrab, niche indicating the direction of prayer, and finial, usually crescent-shaped, Meanwhile, by the 17th century, these were a significant flow of pilgrimage. These were a significant flow of pilgrims and students to the Hijaz and Egypt. These developments occurred in the context of a diffusion of Sufi orders and Sufi shrines across the Islamic world. Hence, almost from its very beginning, Sudanese Islamic society was associated with Sufi tariqas and with the origins of the tradition of Sufi shrines in the Neolithic Sudan, as it persists in social memory and practice, corresponds with the lengthy reign of Ajib al-Manjuluk. While this statement reflects the explicit narrative of the introduction to the Tabaqat, it is also based on the origins of a number of most prominent centers of Islamic scholarship. الصوفي ذكر Tranch Island, founded by أولاد جابر, descendants of غلام الله ibn Haydar Rikabi, النوري, زحموت تياب, جوز العلم, زسويروناب, العلفون, إدريس الأرباب, أرباجي, قاددشان and others, أبو حراز, سعركيون. Ajib himself achieved the exceptional status of being remembered as both a temporal ruler and a religious sheikh, and Gubba was erected over his burial place. The enduring significance of these locales rested on their cemeteries. This was one of the considerations in the mind of the great Saghayrun when he was offered whatever he wanted by the fond King Bade, and responded, except for a stretch of ground, a watering place, ushra, for the fugara, and burial ground, I want nothing. The location of the Wali's tomb is one of the elements common to most of the biographies in the Tabaqat of Abdullah, along with his teacher, a course of study, pupils and disciples, writings and manifestations, miraculous words. Typically, reference to the place of his grave is followed by the stock phrase, it is visible and visited, Zahirun Yuzar. Mark Michael writes that the value of the book, that is referring to the book of Tabaqat of Abdullah, lies largely in identifying those for whom the shrines were built, and the dome gubbas of most of these holy men have survived to the present. Beyond providing this information, however, the Tabaqat was not a pilgrim guide, a genre that has no examples in the Neolithic Sudan. The Egyptian or the Turco-Egyptian conquest of the Neolithic Sudan in 1821 marked a fundamental break in political and economic developments. The religious sheikhs faced new and serious challenges to their status and influence, but also new opportunities to strengthen their social base and extend the geographical scope of their activities. Visitation of shrines, old and new, recovered fresh attention, and the impact of neo-Sufi affiliations and reformers did not diminish the construction of kubbas. Muhammad Majzoub was an ardent venerator of saints, and wherever he went, visiting their tombs was among his most urgent concerns, like Idris with al-Arbab 2 centuries earlier, he discovered many forgotten tombs of awliya, writings of the Khatmiya, encouraged visitation to graves as reminder of the day of judgment, and Qubba was erected over the grave of the leader of the Sudanese Khatmiya, Al-Hassan al-Mirqani, at Kassala. So still the audience, I'm presenting a sample and examples of the scattering of tombs and domes across the country. So in the Rashidiyya Idrisiya tradition, the Egyptian Muhammad Ahmad al-Dindrawi raised Qubba for Abdurrahman with al-Hajj at Duwaym with Hajj. Diyum with Hajj, and for al-Hajj Hajj al-Mahi at al-Kassinger. There are numerous references to Qubbas in the major historical work on the Sammaniya in Sudan. Mahmoud Nur al-Daim, Zahir al-Riyad, and one of the preeminent acts of piety Muhammad Ahmad before he declared himself the Mahdi was the building of a Qubba for his master in the Sammaniya Tariqa, Qurashi al-Dazan. So Shaykh Abdul Mahmoud Nur al-Daim here stated that before declaring himself the Mahdi, Imam Muhammad Ahmad al-Mahdi has built a Qubba for his teacher Sheikh Qurashi al-Dazan. The practice of visitation to the shrines was soon resorted, and this involved the repair or new construction of dome tombs. The 20th century Qubbas were generally much larger and more complex than older ones, often with windows, full-size doorways, spacious entry-on, and walled courtyards. The Qubbas of إدريس الأرباب بن العلفون محمد والبدر نمضون باشري يوسف الهندي in برج العماب حمد النيل in Omdurman are examples of these imposing modern buildings. Eventually, the silver dome tomb of the Mahdi himself, shelled and razed by the British in 1898, was rebuilt. Much of the building of Qubbas took place in areas that had not previously had them. The independence of the Republic of Sudan in 1956 did not fundamentally change the favorable political milieu for the Sufi brotherhoods. To the contrary, the presidency of Ja'far Nimeri 1969-1985 promoted what Idris Salim al-Hassan has called a religious revival. Government points were given to members of brotherhoods. Financial support was provided for Sufi activities, and a newly established Ministry of Religious Affairs encouraged the building of mosques and the works of religious schools. Nimeri took personal interest in the affairs of the brotherhood, Sufis. Always a key concern of the Sufi Shuyukh was the influx of visitors and disciples for whom the shrines were important magnets and symbols. The president is credited, that is Ja'far Nimeri, with replacing the old Qubbas in many localities or building new ones, structures that were larger and more colorful than their austere predecessors and in greater conformity with the contemporary international styles in the Islamic world. This launched a trend that has continued under subsequent governments, while building designs varied. The preference has been for tall, pointed domes in the style of the Mahdi tomb. Qubbas continue to be among the most beautiful and distinguished structures in Sudan. The new ones are better engineered and more improving than their predecessors, though those in the built environment of the larger towns and cities have lost some of their physical prominence. The cost of society, loss of a part of a unique cultural and aesthetic legacy through dismantling of old domes. The Qubbas of the Sudan were derived from the local pre-Islamic grounded structures. These were adapted to the basic norms of Islam. Red bricks were available from ruins of the Christian churches and domestic architecture. The Qubbas present an architectural legacy whereby archaeology can trace origins and influence relative to the earlier periods. That, for example, the unique pyramidal Qubba may indicate that the Mason was influenced by the pyramids of Meroe in the Butana region, through which the Araki tribe migrated to the Jazira region. This helps in clarifying the continuity and persistence of cultures in Sudan. It shows that pagan, Christian, and Islamic elements blended to benefit of Islam. They can also be used to demonstrate the power of imported ideas, their sources, and the circumstances associated with the importation of new ideas. The main features of the Qubbas. The main features of the domes could be shown as in the following points. Number one, the interior. The interior occupied by the cenotaph, which usually includes the burial of the sheikh. In some cases, it includes many burials. Number two, types of mihrabs. And here we have three types of mihrabs. That keel arch niche, point arched niche, triangle niche. Number three, types of zone of transition. And here we have the earlier type is a simple wooden slabs put at the corners of the substructure as in the tomb of Abdel Kafi. Flat pendentive, another feature to this type. Ordinary squinch. And then here we have number four, decoration. Rarely attempt, but we can cite for examples. Textured dadu, as on the Qubba of Sheikh Hamad al-Nil. And then we have zigzag motif affected by means of bricks, as on the Qubba of Sheikh Yunus. By the way, the study here have been conducted in Abu Haraz, that is famous site of the scattering of Qubbas in the central part of the country, Sudan. Ribs over the dome, as on the Qubba of Sheikh Muhammad al-Yunus. Pillar-like buttresses at the four corners, as on the Qubba of Sheikh Yunus. The small domes on the four open arches are featured, as are a feature appearing after the Mahdi's Qubba, which was built in 1885. This feature does seem rather similar to the corner domes of some of the upper Egyptian tombs, like those of القباب. Qubbas, dome tombs of senates are not merely the centers of innumerable folk cults. However, they are also a legitimate historical monument to the men who first brought knowledge of Islamic faith, as distinguished from membership in the Sudan. If these pioneer missionaries are sometimes better remembered and more generally venerated than the somewhat remote God and Prophet whom they preach, this is keeping with immemorial nature of folk religion. In his voluminous work, Islam in Sudan, Birmingham referred to the nature of the dome tomb, not only for religious life of the people, but also the social life. Birmingham investigated and explained the function of the dome tomb in Sudan. He says, as far more significant symbol of faith is scattered about the Sudan is greater provision than the mosque is the whitewashed dome tomb of senates. The one may be regarded as the symbol of the system, and the other of a living faith. Tasar Sayrun, a source in this particular area, that is archaeology, in her MA thesis entitled Islamic Dome Tomb of Central Sudan, selected 15 dome tombs. These dome tombs are distinguished in 3 areas: Khartoum, Alafun, and Abu Haraz. Intisar argues, the Qubbas present an archaeological architectural legacy whereby archaeology can trace origin and influences relative to earlier periods. This helps in clarifying the continuity and persistence of cultures in Sudan. It shows pagan, Christian, and Islamic elements blended to benefit of Islam. The Qubba is always a holy place, and the fence area around it is also haram, a sanctuary where a traveler's goods can be left safely and without interference. The Qubbas are sites of local pilgrimage on the holy days or on occasions where it is necessary to make a special request from the Senate. A solemn oath may also be sworn at a Qubba belonging to a familiar ancestor. The domes were usually built by the sons of holy men or followers. Some of these tombs were renovated by followers or through motive or votive offerings from ordinary people. The Tariq Sufi orders also had another types of shrine known as bayan. This is part of the Sufi culture, literally revealing, meaning where a particular holy man revealed himself in a dream. Such places usually enclosed with flags, rayat, or bawariq, and became a palace or a place of local pilgrimage. The audience, I would like to reminding you that I'm presenting archaeology as part of our series of documentaries that have been dedicated to trace the impact and the influence of religion and Sufism on arts in Sudan. In this part of the episode, I would like to share some points about the significance of dom toms to Sudanese people. And I would like to start with this point. Neo-Olcin, the people know the Senate's burial places and their names, but they do not know any of the Fong kings or where they were buried. This reflects the important role played by the Senate's Sufis during the last 5 centuries. The historical value of tom-doms is also expressed by shiny, referring to Soba. By the way, Soba is near Khartoum, and it is the capital of Alwa Christian kingdom, the last kingdom that have been defeated by the Fong, and then the establishment of Fong Sultanate in 1504. So I would like to quote shiny, referring to Soba. There is good evidence to show that there was a habitation there, but it may well have been in the site of the modern village of Soba to the south of the ancient town. The evidence of the 16th, 17th century occupation is the existence of a gubba, a dom tomb of a holy man. It is clear now these gubbas are places of historically non-sheikhs and legitimate historical monuments to the first men who propagated Islam in Sudan. The gubbas also have proved to be evidence of habitation sites in many cases, as well as reflecting some light on the movement of the Arabs and Arabized tribes about the Sudan. Visitor may come simply to honor the memory of the holy man and to bring offerings of food or money, which are distributed among the tomb's custodians, or else to request the holy man's protective or curative powers. Pregnant women might visit a gubba, for instance, to seek an easy delivery or the birth of a son. The vicinity of Gubba is often considered a protected space, haram, and people may seek asylum there from enemies or the authorities. Bending houses can be sworn or personal goods stored there, and even wild animals should not be slain there, as well as personal visits. Gubbas are also a place for regular Sufi devotions, particularly on the anniversary of the holy man's birth. The tombs and shrines also serve as places where ceremonies for the anniversary, Mawlid, and death, Hawliya, of the holy man were held. Gubbas are found mainly along the Blue Nile and the Nile north of Khartoum, though isolated examples are found through most of Muslim Sudan. In Sudan, as in much of the North Africa, the tomb of the Senate serves the same purpose as the sacred tree or cave. The Sheikh of a Tariqa in some cases assume many of the attributes of a divine king. In his introduction to the book The Dom Tombs and Shrines in Sudan, the late Sudanese scholar Aoun Sharif Qasim stated that the gubbas in Sudan are not merely a building, rather they are the lightning signs that tell the effort that had been led by the earliest Sufi men in the whole country. To quote him, they are not here referring to dom tombs. They are not a mere building nor historical archaeology, but they are lightening science for what men have given their lives and existence for the service of Allah religion and its consultation across the width and longitude of the land. And by this they were the long golden episode extended since the beginning of the Risala to include all the parts of the Islamic world. And those righteous men have strove through the history with the dissemination of ilm, science, knowledge, and Arabic Islamic culture to preserve the heritage of the Ummah and pillar of civilization, despite of all circumstances, the scarceness of the resources, obstacles, and hardships. All this never prevented them in the way of achieving the highest target. The audience, I share these points, I shared these ideas about Dom Tom in Sudan as part of our documentary to archaeology in the country. And as I told, I have focused only on Dom Toms, an element of Islamic culture, of Islamic civilization, scattered across the country. And by this, the audience, I have come to the end of the episode. But before to wrap up here, I would like to share the sources that already I have consulted to present the episode. Abdul Majid Hanum, Practicing Sufism, Sufi Politics and Performance in Africa, published on 2016, American University. Amal Asma Abdul Hamid, Slavery in the Sudan, History, Documents and Commentary by Muhammad Ibrahim Nugud, 2013. Al-Sayyid al-Aswad, Spiritual Genealogy, Sufism and Senate Places in Nile Delta. Intisar Saghirun, International Society of Nubian Studies, published article on ResearchGate. TylerFrancis.com, and here I have quoted chapters speaking on Tom-Toms in Sudan. David Edwards, The Nubian Past, Archaeology of Sudan, Historical Dictionary of Sudan. Salah Umar As-Siddiq, The Story of Tom-Toms of Eastern Sudan from Past to Present, دراسات أفريقية Journal, issue number 3, published on 1424 Hijri. And finally, The Impact of Sufism on Arts in Sudan, published book by Abdul Jalil Abdullah Saleh Musawarat for publication and distribution. By this, the audience, I came to the end of the episode. Till seeing you in another episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.